It was supposed to be a Christmas party. I remember the smell of cheap beer in the air, the faint hum of holiday music, and the cold sting of winter biting through my coat as I watched everyone dance and laugh. I was just there because it's what you do, support your wife, Jen, who insisted it was a work thing, and try to enjoy the season. But I had this prickling feeling in the back of my head, a kind of itch that wouldn't go away. I told myself it was paranoia, that maybe I'd been working too much lately. Still, something felt off, like I'd missed a clue I wasn't seeing. Jen looked beautiful that night. She was wearing a red dress that hugged her curves just right, her long hair falling in soft waves. I kissed her on the cheek before she headed into the crowd. "Have fun," I said, trying to sound casual. She smiled back, but her eyes flicked away quickly. That tiny flicker of distraction gnawed at me. She's been acting strange for weeks, more distracted, less engaged when we talk. Still, I didn't push. I figured she was just tired or stressed. With work, the night went on. I grabbed a drink, tried to mingle, but that gnawing suspicion kept tugging at me. Something was wrong. It wasn't just the way Jen kept sneaking glances at her phone or how she excused herself to the bathroom more than usual. I watched her from across the room, feeling that knot tighten in my stomach. Then, as I turned to go find her, I saw her with her boss, Mike. They were standing close, whispering, her face slightly flushed. My eyes narrowed. I didn't want to believe it, but the way she touched her hair and the way Mike kept leaning in, those were signs. I saw her laugh at something he said, that fake, too bright smile she uses when she's hiding something. It hit me hard. This wasn't just a friendly chat. It was something more. I stayed rooted, pretending to look for a friend, but my mind was racing. Jen was always faithful, always honest. At least I thought she was. But now everything felt different. When she started heading toward the bar, I kept a close eye. I followed her at a distance, just enough to see her pull out her phone and whisper into it. Then she turned around and headed toward the restroom, quickening her pace. I waited outside the door, heart pounding. When she emerged, her face was a little flushed, and she looked around quickly as if she knew she'd been caught. I approached her, voice tight. "Who was that, your boss?" She froze, eyes wide with that guilty look I'd seen on her before. "It's nothing," she mumbled. "Just work stuff, it's not what you think." But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. Before I could say anything more, I saw it, the corner of a hotel key peeking out of her purse when she reached for her coat. It was shiny, new, and clearly not something you'd carry around unless you stayed somewhere. My stomach dropped. The receipts were tucked into her wallet, partially hidden under some cash. I grabbed her arm, feeling how cold my palms had become. "Let me see what you're hiding," I said, voice rough. She looked panicked but didn't resist when I snatched her purse. Sure enough, there was the hotel key, along with receipts for a room booked just a few nights ago. I looked at her, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. All her protests, her "just a kiss," suddenly sounded hollow, and that's when I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. I'd been wrong to trust blindly, and now everything was about to change. I had to decide whether to confront her right there or take some time to plan my next move. But deep down, I already knew what I was going to do. The betrayal was real, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. I stood there in the dim hallway, my heart pounding so loud I thought everyone in the room could hear it. Jen's face went pale when I pulled out the hotel receipts and the shiny key from her purse. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to find an escape route, but there was nowhere to run. I felt my fists tighten, not out of rage. Okay, maybe a little more out of this growing sense that everything I believed in was crumbling. "Who is he?" I asked, voice harder than I expected. My knuckles ached from gripping the receipt so tightly. She looked down, eyes flickering with guilt, then back up at me with a stubborn tilt of her chin. "It's not what you think," she said, voice trembling. "It was just a kiss, it didn't mean anything." Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in her head, but they couldn't hide the tremor in her voice. "Just a kiss," I echoed, scoffing. "That's what you call it, a hotel room, receipts, a key. What exactly am I supposed to believe here?" She looked away, biting her lip. "It was a mistake. I was drunk. It meant nothing, I swear." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My stomach churned with a mix of betrayal and anger. I trusted her through everything, our wedding, buying a house, our plans for the future, and now it felt like all of that was a house of cards ready to blow over. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. You swear it was just a kiss. Then what's this hotel key? Did you stay the night? Her eyes flickered again and I saw her scramble for an excuse. It's nothing, just a mistake I was going to tell you about. I was going clean, I swear. But I didn't buy it, not anymore. It was like that moment you know the truth, even if someone's trying to hide it behind lies. I clenched my jaw, feeling the cold sweat on my palms. I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I just stood there staring. Why? I finally managed, voice low and rough. Why did you do it with him? She hesitated, then whispered, I don't know. It just happened. It was a mistake, I swear. I didn't mean for it to get this far. That's when I realized I needed to get out of there, clear my head. I shoved the receipts back into her purse and stepped away. You're not going anywhere tonight. We're talking about this, but know this isn't just about a kiss. There's more to it, and I'm going to find out everything. She looked desperate now. Please don't do this. It was a one-time thing. I love you. That word hit me like a slap. Love. It was supposed to mean trust, faithfulness. Right now, it felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't say anything, just turned and walked away, feeling the weight of her words and her betrayal pressing down on me. Later that night, I sat alone in our living room, staring at the receipts, the hotel key still clutched in my hand. My mind raced through possibilities, plans I could make. I felt the cold sweat on my forehead, the tension knotting in my shoulders. I had no idea what would come next, but I knew one thing: this was just the beginning. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without paying a price. I had to get my head straight, figure out my next move. But one thing was clear: I wasn't the same person anymore, and she'd better be ready for what was coming. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy, foggy feeling in my head, like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer overnight. I couldn't get the image of those hotel receipts or her guilty face out of my mind. My stomach was in knots, and my mouth tasted of bitterness. I knew I couldn't just sit around and stew over it. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what that was yet. I spent the next few hours planning, going over every detail. I wanted to catch her, but also to make her understand I wasn't just some pushover who'd turn the other cheek. I decided I'd use her own game against her. She thought she'd gotten away with it, but I'd make sure she paid publicly, and in a way she'd never forget. I started to sketch out a plan, one that would give me control and hopefully a little peace of mind. First, I needed proof that her affair wasn't just a one-time slip-up. I dug through our bank statements, looking for strange charges, hotel stays, or anything else that didn't add up. Nothing jumped out immediately, but I knew it was only a matter of time before I'd find something. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on her, following her routines, listening in on her calls when I could, just to gather more intel. She was acting weird, more distant, anxious, like she was already preparing herself for the fallout. I caught her once, brushing her hair nervously, eyes darting to her phone. When I asked what was wrong, she just shrugged and said she was tired. I knew better. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. One evening, I decided it was time for a little inspection. I texted her boss, Mike, under the guise of a work-related message, asking if he wanted to meet for a drink. I played it cool, pretending to be interested in some gossip or a possible project. When he replied, I arranged to meet him, acting nonchalant but with a plan in mind. That night, I sat across from him in a dim, quiet bar, my palms sweaty but my tone steady. Mike, I said casually, Jen told me she's been feeling pretty stressed lately. You guys work closely, huh? He nodded, taking a sip of his beer. Yeah, we do. She's been under a lot of pressure. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. You know, I've had my suspicions. I hope I'm wrong, but I just want to be upfront. Anything you want to tell me. He hesitated, then shrugged. Look, I don't know what Jen been telling you, but I'd never do anything to hurt her, or you. Honestly, I thought she was faithful. That answer was enough for me. I had what I needed: confirmation that their affair was real and that I was onto something. I left the bar with a clearer head, feeling that rush of adrenaline mixed with a bitter sense of victory. I knew what I had to do now. This wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about making her see she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. Back home, I started to put my plan into motion. I arranged to go to her work to speak with her boss face to face, under the guise of a professional conversation. I wanted her to see I was serious, that I knew everything. I also prepared a little something, an evidence trail that would make her realize I wasn't just going to quietly walk away. That evening, I took the hotel key and receipts, along with some copies of bank statements and messages I had saved. I printed everything out, made copies, and hid them carefully where I knew she wouldn't see right away. Then I sat back and waited, feeling the weight of my decision settle in my chest. I couldn't help but wonder how she'd react when she found out I knew. Would she try to deny everything again? Or would she finally see that I was serious? Either way, I was ready. The game was on and I was playing for keeps. But I couldn't shake the feeling that, no matter the outcome, nothing would ever be the same. The day I decided to confront her, my stomach was a mess of nerves and adrenaline. I woke up early, feeling like I was about to walk into a storm I couldn't control. I brewed coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the evidence spread out in front of me: photos of the hotel receipts, the hotel key, copies of bank statements. I ran my finger over the paper, feeling the rough edges like touching a part of her betrayal. I had to stay calm. No yelling, no shouting, just cold, calculated. Jen was still sleeping when I left the house. I knew I had to do this alone. I drove to her office, the streets blurring past as my mind spun through every possible thing she might say or do. When I arrived, I kept my face neutral, pretending everything was normal. I headed straight to her boss's office, where he was waiting for me. Mike looked surprised too. Me? I could see the moment he realized I wasn't there for small talk. I stood in front of him, my arms crossed, my voice steady but firm. "Mike," I said, "I think we need to talk privately." He looked caught off guard but nodded. We moved into a conference room and I slid the evidence across the table: the hotel receipts, the key, the bank statements. His face lost some of its color as he looked at everything laid out. "I want to hear it from you," I said. "Did you sleep with my wife?" Hesitated, then finally nodded. "Yeah, we did. I didn't want to hurt you, man. I swear I didn't plan for it to happen." I felt a strange mixture of relief and fury. Relief that I finally knew the truth, but fury boiling just underneath. I clenched my fists. "You didn't plan for it? Well, congratulations, neither did I, but now I've got proof. And I want you to know I'm not going to let this slide." He looked down, remorse flickering across his face. "I'm sorry, I really am. I didn't mean for it to go this far, but she's the one who came onto me. I didn't want to hurt you either." I nodded, feeling the cold realization settle in. This was the beginning of something I'd envisioned but hoped would never happen. Now it was inevitable. As I turned to leave, I told him, "I want her to see the truth, so I'm giving her every reason to think I know, and I'll be waiting for her to come to me." I left the office knowing I had what I needed. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what I thought we had and making her face the consequences of her betrayal. Back home, I prepared myself for the confrontation. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I could feel the weight of what was coming. When Jen finally came home, I didn't say a word at first. Instead, I handed her a sealed envelope, the evidence I had gathered, everything laid out clearly. Her face went pale when she looked inside, and her eyes filled with tears. I finally spoke, voice low and cold. "You lied to me. All those excuses, all that pretending, you swore it was just a kiss. I have proof it was more. You stayed in that hotel with him. You lied to my face, Jen. How long has this been going on?" She looked like she was about to collapse, trembling as she tried to form words. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "It was a mistake. I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, I love you." But I was done listening to her lies. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the key I'd hidden earlier. It was a reminder that I wasn't just angry, I was strategic. I wanted her to understand that I knew everything, that I hadn't missed a single detail. "Love," I said quietly. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated, you wouldn't have lied, and you sure as hell wouldn't have kept a hotel key in your purse." Her face crumpled and she started to cry, real tears this time, but I knew I couldn't go back, not after this. I had played my hand and now I had to decide what came next. I looked at her and for a second I felt the sinking weight of loss. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was the end, and I was ready to walk away. The silence in the room was thick with unspoken words. Jen sat there, tears streaming down her face, her hands trembling as she clutched the evidence I'd handed her. I stood across from her, My jaw clenched so tight I could feel the muscles tighten with every second. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears, the rush of adrenaline, the ache of betrayal, and that strange flicker of empowerment I hadn't felt in years. I looked at her, feeling every ounce of my resolve settle into a quiet, cold fury. "You swore to me that you loved me," I said softly but with enough edge to cut through the air. "But love doesn't make you cheat. Love doesn't hide hotel keys or lie about a harmless kiss. Love doesn't betray your partner and then pretend it's all a mistake." She looked up, her eyes red and swollen, desperation etched into her face. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking, "you have to believe me. It was a mistake. I was drunk. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I shook my head slowly, feeling the weight of her words but knowing I'd heard enough. "A mistake doesn't come with hotel receipts and a key in your purse," I said flatly. "That's a choice. You made it, and I can't keep pretending I didn't see what's right in front of me anymore." Her shoulders sagged and she looked defeated, as if she was finally realizing the extent of what she'd lost. I didn't want to see her cry anymore. Only made me angrier, made me feel like I was the one losing everything. But the truth was, I had already lost trust, the foundation of what we shared. "So," I said, voice firmer now, "here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things and leave, not tonight but soon. I want you out of my house. I want the key back. And I want you to understand you cheated on me, lied to my face, and I won't tolerate it anymore." She looked at me, eyes filled with a mixture of regret and fear. "Where are you going to go?" I took a deep breath, feeling the sharp sting of betrayal still in my chest. "I don't know yet. Maybe I'll stay with a friend. Maybe I'll rent a place, but I won't be here with someone who doesn't respect me or our marriage." Her voice broke as she tried one last time. Can't we fix this? I'm sorry, I'll do anything." I took a step back, feeling the finality settle in. Sorry doesn't fix a betrayal this deep. Sorry doesn't undo what's been done. And honestly, I don't want to see you again until you've had time to think about what you've lost. She looked like she wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. I turned and went to the door, my hand trembling slightly as I grasped the handle. I knew this was the end. I could feel it in my bones. I looked back once, catching her broken, pleading stare, then stepped out into the cold night, closing the door behind me. That night I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the house through the windshield. My hands were cold, my stomach still twisted in knots. But underneath all that chaos, I felt a strain. Flicker of relief. I was finally free from the chaos of her lies. I'd taken control and I was ready to start rebuilding without her. Walking away that night wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about reclaiming myself from the wreckage of betrayal. And as I drove off into the darkness, I knew one thing for sure. I'd never let anyone do this to me again. Trust was a fragile thing, and I'd learned the hard way who I could and couldn't trust. The scars would heal, but the lessons would stay with me forever. The days that followed were a blur of cold mornings and long nights. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out the ache in my chest and the relentless replay of everything that had happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the remorse, the desperation, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Still, it didn't make it any easier to forget. Trust was shattered, and the silence in the house was deafening. I kept the evidence tucked away, hidden from view, but I knew it was there, a constant reminder of what she'd done. I didn't throw it out. I didn't destroy it. I just kept it close, like a shield, because sometimes I needed to remind myself that I had the power, that I wasn't the fool who'd believed in fairy tales. One afternoon, I packed her things. It wasn't a pleasant task. Each item was a reminder of what we'd lost. As I put her clothes into boxes, I felt nothing but a quiet resolve. I'd loved her once, but love can turn into something else, something bitter and necessary. I handed her the keys, watching her nervously clutch them, her eyes glistening with tears. "Take these," I said softly, "and don't come back." She looked at me for a moment, then nodded. No more pleading, no more desperate apologies, just silence, heavy and final. I closed the door behind her and watched her walk away, every step echoing in my mind like a countdown. My chest felt tight, but I told myself it was better this way, better than pretending everything was fine. Later, I sat in what was once our shared space, feeling the emptiness settle around me. I poured a drink, took a long sip and looked around at the quiet apartment. It was strange, so peaceful. Now yet somehow hollowed out. I knew I'd rebuild, that life would go on, just not with her. That night I made a decision. I'd never let myself be that vulnerable again. Trust was a gift, but it was also a risk. From now on, I'd be more cautious, more guarded. I'd focus on myself, on healing, on rediscovering who I was outside that broken relationship. Looking back, I realized something important. Betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about the loss of respect and the tearing apart of what you thought was real. It's about realizing that sometimes love isn't enough to stop someone from hurting you, but it doesn't have to define you either. So I took those final steps, filling out the paperwork, officially filing for divorce, and handing over the house keys at the courthouse. As I watched her sign the papers and walk out of my life for good, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I learned that revenge isn't about revenge at all. It's about ending the cycle, taking control, and walking away stronger. No matter how much it hurts, you have to remember you're worth more than the betrayal, more than the lies. And sometimes the only way to truly move on is to walk away and never look back. The scars will fade, but the lessons stay with you. That's the real strength, knowing you survived, that you're better without the person who didn't deserve your trust in the first place. And as I closed that chapter of my life, I finally felt free.